Begin today the Gemara on Daf Chaf Aleph, second line down from the top of the Yamad, Amar Shmuel. The Gemara is talking about the Isser of V'seret le'nefesh le'sitnu, which is that one should not make a cut in his flesh at a time of mourning for someone that passed away, as the minig was by the Goyim. Okay. So the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Shmuel said, Hamesaret bekeli, someone that makes this cut, not with his hand, but with some kind of utensil, chayev, will be chayev for this. So as the Rivan here explains, the point that Shmuel is coming to say is as follows. When you look in the Torah regarding this subject, it uses two different expressions. It says the Lashon v'seret la'nefesh le'sitnu b'psarchem, and it also says another term, loisis goydedu. What's the difference simply? Seret is when a person makes a cut by hand. Loisis goydedu is when a person does something with a keli, with some kind of utensil. So if it's done by hand, then what would be chayev? Malchus once. And if it's done with a keli, one would be chayev malchus once. It's similar, but it's two different things. What Shmuel is actually saying is, by using this expression of mesaret, but then he says v'keli, what he's saying is that if one makes this cut with a keli, he'll be chayev twice. One for la yisretu, or v'seret la'nefesh le'sitnu, and the other one for loisis gaidedu. Because when it says in the pasuk, the term of sirite and the term of loisis gaidedu, both of them mean the same thing. That one should not cut himself like the Goyim did, whether with a keli, whether biyad. And therefore, however it's done, if it's done b'keli, even though seemingly that's not the srita, it's loisis gaidedu, but srita does mean b'keli, and therefore will be chayev malchus twice. That's the way the Rivan explains this. That was the Chiddush of Shmuel. So on this the Gemara asks, Meisvei, in the Braise, it clearly says not so. Srita ugedide achasi. Srita and gedide are both the same concept, where a person is making this cut as a sign for his mourning. Ella, but there's a difference. Shesrita biyad, the isser of v'seret la'nefesh le'sitnu, that's when it's done by hand. But ugedide, loisis gaidedu, that's bekeli, with a utensil. So clearly the Braise is saying that it's a different act, and it's you're not chayev twice malchus when you make a srita with a keli. And says the Gemara, who the Omar Rab Yosi. What Shmuel says is following the opinion of Rab Yosi that the Gemara brought before in the first line of the Yamad. If you see, the Gemara here said that Rab Yosi holds that srita ugedida achasi, that when it says in the Torah the seret la'nefesh le'sitnu, and when it says in the Torah le'sis gaidedu, it's the same thing. It's the same isser, and therefore you will be chayev twice when one does the srita with a keli. Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Yechanan, there's a Tana that taught in front of Rabbi Yechanan. Al Meis, when it comes to this isser of srita for someone that died, then bein biyad, bein bekeli, whether it was done by hand, whether it was done with a utensil, chayev. Al Avodas kechavim, but then there's something different. When this is done as a way of serving Avodah Zarah, it's a completely different thing. This is the isser of Avodah Zarah. It's one of the ways how Avodah Zarah is served. So then biyad chayev, if it's done by hand, then one would be chayev for serving Avodah Zarah. Bekeli, if it's done with a keli though, then he's potter. Because the Gemara now understands what Rabbi Yechanan is saying is that the derech, the way it's done for Avodah Zarah, is dafke biyad. But when it's done with a keli, that's not the way they do it, and therefore one is potter. It's not the derech of its avodah. But the Gemara asks on this, in the Lashon of the pasuk where it describes this kind of Avodah Zarah, it says actually the exact opposite. That they made this cotton themselves as their minig of Avodah Zarah was, and they used charves ramacham, a sword and a spear. So you see that it's not done by hand when this is being done for the sake of Avodah Zarah. So therefore, what Rabbi Yechanan really said was the opposite, or the Tana that taught in front of Rabbi Yechanan, it should be taught the opposite. That biyad, when it's done for the sake of Avodah Zarah by hand, then potter. But bekeli, if it's done with a utensil, then, like it says in the pasuk, one would be chayev. Going back to the Mishnah, it said v'chayev ala roish, that one is chayev on the srita or on the karcha. V'chayev ala roish. This goes back. It said in the Mishnah, v'chayev ala roish, the peyes haroish. It's referring to the peyes haroish. Shtayim, achas mikan v'achas mikan. That there's the peyes haroish on both sides. So the Gemara says, machvi Rav Sheishes ben pikir reisha. Rav Sheishes would demonstrate. He showed with his hands the sides, which is the temples, the place where the payas is. Those are the payas that if one removes, he's chayev twice. Yeah, we learned already before that the lashon of the pasuk is sakifu pas roishchem, that the forehead has no hair, behind the ear there's no hair, and when one cuts off the payas that's on the side, So then it becomes like round, it becomes like equal in the front and the back. That's the Isser of removing the payas. By the beard, there are actually 5 points where the Isser of the Torah, the Pa'as, the points of the beard are 5 different points, 2 on each side, and 1 in the center, on the bottom, in the chin. So Machvi Rav Shesha has been Pirkei de Dikna. Rav Shesha has also demonstrated this. So as you see here from the Lashon of the Gemara, Rav Sheshes, that is not something that you can really describe so much in writing. Rav Sheshes, when he taught his Talmidim, he demonstrated this physically, showing them where it is. And there's a couple of opinions in Rishonim about this. I spoke already about this yesterday when we learned the Mishnah. According to the Rivan, the 2 points of the beard on each side, one is basically below the ear by the chin, the bottom part of the chin where it ends. There's a point that connects to the top part of the chin. I meant the cheek that is, sorry, the bottom part of the cheek, which is below the ear, and then the chin is right in the center. But before that, as the 2 sides of the cheek come together, there's 2 points on the 2 sides of the chin. That's the other 2 points. So you have 2 on each side, and then the center is the center of the chin is the 5th one. That's Rashbam's pshat. If I remember correctly, according to Rashi, the Yvonne's pshat. Thank you. If I remember correctly, Rashi says that the ones on the 2 on the each side is 1 at the bottom of the ear, like the Yvonne, but then the one that's sort of on the bottom of the eye, which is another point of the top of the cheek. Those are the 2 points. Okay, so trying to demonstrate it. So, okay. There's another opinion also, but that's Al-Kopanim, this is the Indian here. The Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer says, if someone removes his beard, all of these different areas of the hairs, of the different payas of the zakin, is chayiv only once. Kasavar, Rabbi Eliezer holds, chad lavu. And the Torah, it just says 1 lav. So since it's 1 lav, even if it's 5 different points, but chayiv only once. And then the Mishnah said, the Tanakama holds that the shaving the beard is only if it's done with a razor. What's the source for this? Tana Rabbanos and Abraisa, we learned, it says in the pasuk that one should not shave the hairs of the beard. So now Yochel, the term Yigalecho, I would think that includes a fila gilchay b'misparayim, even if it's shaved with some kind of other scissors. Yechayiv, it would be chayiv as well. Talmud Loimar leisashches. So the Torah uses the term leisashches, that you shouldn't remove the beard in such a way that it completely destroys the root of the hairs. With a scissor, it's not. It doesn't go that deep. It's only if it's shaved off with giluach, if it's done with a razor. Now, but if the Torah would only say that you should not remove the hairs where it goes all the way to the root, so Yachal, I would think, that if you pulled out the hairs, you took out the hairs with a malakit or a hitni, which is a plane, or a tweezer, that also pulls out the hair completely, it would be chayiv as well. But the Torah says lo yigalechu, which means that it has to be done in the ordinary way that a person shaves the beard, the hairs of the beard, not when it's done with these kinds of utensils that are used for carpentry. So, keitzat. Therefore, what does the pasuk mean when you put both of these psukim together? The term that it says lo yigalechu and the term that it says lo sashchis. Giluach sheyesh boy hashchasa. Shaving the beard, but it has to be shaved in a way that it destroys the roots of the hair completely. And havayim is zatar, and that is when it's shaved dafke with a razor. That's the Tanakama's opinion. Now, Rabbi Eliezer, even if someone removed the hairs with these utensils, this plane or a tweezer, he would also be chayiv, not only with a shaver. Perfect. Gemara, what does he hold? Manavshach. However you look at this, Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is not understood. If he's learning this Gzeira Shave, meaning that we're looking over at the 2 psukim, Lo Yigalechu and Lo Sashches, and we're comparing these 2 things, it says by both of them, the term of Peya, Lo Sashches, Pa'aza Kanecha, and Pa'aza Kanam Lo Yigalechu, so we're comparing these 2 psukim, as the Gemara explained before, and therefore has to be both Giluach and Hashchase, so therefore, Liboyetar, as the Tanakhama concluded, that's only with a razor. If he does not compare and put together both of these psukim, so then misperayim namiloy. So then even just with a scissors, it should also not be allowed, because each pasuk stands alone. And when the pasuk says upaskanam lo yigalechu, not to shave, it would be even shaving with the scissors. And says the Gemara, Lo'ilam gomek gzeira shava. He does learn out the gzeira shava, but ukesavar haninami giluach avdi. His opinion is that this condition that has to be a hashchase that also is a giluach. It's the derech. It is the derech sometimes for a person to shave the beard, not only with a razor, but even with these other utensils that are used usually for carpentry. But it is sometimes a person uses them to cut the hairs of the beard, and therefore, according to his opinion, one would be chayav for that. One that writes a kaka, which is basically a tattoo in the skin. The way the tattoo is done here, as the Mishnah is going to describe now, that there's a cut in the skin, and then there's the writing or the ink or whatever pigment that goes into the skin to be etched into the skin of the body. That's a lav that it remains in the body forever. That's the way the Rivan writes here, that it remains forever. That's the isser of making a tattoo, a lav. Now, kosav v'loy kaka, if a person writes on his skin, but he didn't make the cut that it goes into the skin, or the opposite, kaka v'loy kosav, he makes the cut and he didn't put in a writing that makes the color, then ein chayev, he won't be chayev. At sheyichtov yikakeya b'yodai. Has to be both, that it's done writing and the writing is into the skin, a tattoo that remains there forever. That's the Rivan here says forever. Other Rishonim say lav dafka forever, even if it remains for a very long period of time. And there are also various opinions in the Rishonim exactly what kind of tattoo is asr. Some say it's dafka writing of words. Others say that lav dafka words, even different shapes and things. There's also asr. There's different opinions about this. Okay, and it has to be here in our Mishnah. It says the word biyodai, but the other gersa here is that it's not biyodai, but it's supposed to be b'dyoy, with ink, whether it's done with ink or b'chayil, or with other kinds of pigments, other kinds of things that leave a mark, or b'chol davar shurayshim, anything that leaves a mark in this tattoo. Now, Rab Shimon ben Yehuda, mishum Rab Shimon Oimer, the isser of making a ksevus kaka is different. Ein chayev until he writes there a tattoo with a name. And then it says Ani Hashem. Okay, so the Gemara here explains right away what exactly is Rab Shimon saying. What name are we talking about? What did he mean? He's saying that you see from the end of the pasuk it says Ani Hashem. Does it mean that you only chayav for ksevus kaka for a tattoo if one writes Ani Hashem as a tattoo? Amalei loy. That's not what he meant to say. Rather, kedetani bar kapara, as bar kapara taught, ein chayav sheyichtov shem avodas kechavim. This is what it was. The derech of the goyim was that they would inscribe, they would make a tattoo with a name of avodah zarah. Shenem aksevus kakel is sitting bechem Ani Hashem, and from Ani Hashem we learn Ani Hashem v'lo yachid. I am your God, and not other, not avodah zarah. So the isser of ksevus kakel is dafke with a name of avodah zarah. Omer of Malkiya, Omer of Ada Barava. Rav Malkiya said in the name of Rav Ada Barava that Osalei lo Adam sheyitem eifem makla al makose. One may not put ashes on a wound that he has mipnei shenireh k'ksevus kaka, because it looks like, at least temporarily, when you have that wound, which is an opening in the skin, and then you put the ashes, so then it creates like similar to a tattoo, at least temporarily. It looks like a ksevus kaka, so it's aser. This was a statement that who said? Rav Malkiya said. Now, because it mentioned here, this statement of Rav Malkiya, it brings other statements that were said by Rav Malkiya, as the Gemara will bring, that there were two Amiroim that had a very similar name. One was Rav Malkiya with an Aleph, and the other was Rav Malkiyoi with a Vav. So the Gemara here brings different statements, and not to confuse between these two, Rav Malkiyah and Rav Malkiyoi. So Omer Rav Nachman said that Rav Nachman Breder Rav Ikke, that is, there were three statements. One was a halacha bar a shpud, a spit that's used for roasting meat on Yontif. So the halacha about this shpud is that after it's used, it can't be used again. It's a one-time use. So after it can't be used anymore, so it becomes muktzah on Yontif. But over there, on this, Rav Malkiya said that Rav Malkiyoi, rather. Again, one second. Yeah, Rav Malkiyai with a vav. So regarding this shpud, Rav Malkiyai said, even though it was already used and it becomes muktzeh, the Rivan brings over here what it says about this. This is in Gemara and Beya. Even though it becomes muktzeh, but you can move it with a shinui. You move it and you put it on the side. That's the halacha about shpud. Shvachis. Another halacha about shvachis that Rav Malkiyai said. What's this halacha? A wife has obligations of things that she has to do to serve her husband. So Rav Malkiyai said in the name of Rav Ada that Rav Eliezer says. Now the Tanakhama there says if a woman gets married and she brings in maid servants, 4 maids that all are doing the jobs that she would have to do. So then she doesn't have any obligations to do anything for her husband. But then Rav Malkiyai says in the name of Rav Ada, even if she brings all these maids, there's still something that she has an obligation to do for her husband, because if she sits and does nothing, then that itself is bad for her, and she's not going to be a good wife. She has to at least do something. That's the halacha of shvachis. And gumais, the halacha of gumais refers to the sign of gadlus by a naira. When she has the 2 hairs that are the sign that she's a gedayla, so even if there's just the hair follicles, which is where the hair comes from, if you see that guma, you know that already is enough of a sign that she's a gedayla. So these 3 halachas, shpud, shvachis, and gumais, Rav Malkiyai. Who said this? Rav Malkiyai with a vav at the end. Now there's another 3 halachas, and one of them is the halacha that we just taught before. So one halacha is bloidis, giving a haircut to a guy that wants a haircut to represent his Avodah Zarah. The way they gave the haircut was they left a bloidis. The bloidis, I believe, is not what we call today a chup in the front, but it's a ponytail, which was the derech of Avodah Zarah. So when a Yid is giving this guy a haircut, he's not allowed to give him the haircut to help him out, make it like Avodah Zarah. So when he comes to that area where it is the Avodah Zarah, he has to remove himself. He shouldn't get close to that area where the hairs is that he's making like Avodah Zarah, at least a few hairs away. That's the halacha of a bloidis. Eifer mikla. Then the halacha we just taught about the eifer mikla that's placed into a wound that it could look like a ksayvis kaka, which is chacham or masakin, that it's aser. And gvina, the halacha about not eating the cheese from a guy, and Rav Malkiya explained that the reason for this is because the cheese of a guy they could put on it from the fats of a dovaracha, from a chazer. So these 3 halachas, Rav Malkiya with an aleph said it. Okay, so this was what Rav Nachman said. Remember, 3 halachas Rav Malkiyai said, and 3 halachas Rav Malkiyah said. Rav Papa said a little bit different. Masnita no masnita, the halachas that were said, that were explaining whether a Mishnah or a Braise, Rav Malkiyah. That was all said by Rav Malkiyah. Shmaitase, but the halachas that were said as statements of halacha that were not here to explain a Mishnah or a Braisa, but there's statements that were here that Rav Malkiyah said, and then Rav Malkiyah said to explain a statement of an Amayre, that's Rav Malkiyah with a vav. V'simanach, and a simon for this, masnite malkase, that was what was coming to explain a Braisa or a Mishnah as well, that's malkasa. So in other words, just like masnita is with an aleph at the end, or it's more sounding like a lashon nekeva, malkiyah, that's also sounding like lashon nekeva. That's the simon that these 2 go together. Now the Gemara says the way Rav Papa gave the simon to know what Rav Malkiyah said and what Rav Malkiyah said, it's not exactly the same as Rav Nachman Breder Rav Ikke said. Ikke benayu, there's a difference between them. Shvachis. The halacha about shvachis, this halacha of shvachis actually is coming to explain a Mishnah. So since it's coming to explain a Mishnah, this is the halacha that Rav Malkiyah said, not Rav Malkiyah. So according to Rav Papa, there were 4 halachas that Rav Malkiyah said that were all explaining a Mishnah or a Braisa, and only 2 halachas that Rav Malkiyah said, which were statements that Amayraim said, not coming to explain a Mishnah or a Braisa. Okay, now the Gemara brings another halacha in connection to the ksayvis kaka. Rav Bevei bar Abaye kopid afila arivde de kuslisa. Even when one had a puncture that was made by bloodletting, a small little puncture in the skin, even there you shouldn't place any efer mikla, anything to heal it that could make something look similar to a ksayvis kaka. Ravashi says that it's not asa. If a person has a wound, so so then the fact that it's a wound and he put something there to heal it, it's clear that it's only there to heal the wound, and it's not anything that's similar to ksayvis kaka, and therefore it's allowed. Regarding Malkus, this Mishnah will bring examples of cases where there is a difference whether the person will get 1 Malkus or more than 1. Sagt the Mishnah, Nazir shahoy sheise yayin kol hayom. A Nazir that's not allowed to drink wine, and he's drinking wine all day. Ein chayev ala achas. He's only chayev once malchus for all the wine that he drank all day. He gets a warning not to drink the wine, and he's drinking wine a whole day, only one malchus. But if during the day when he's drinking, he gets another warning for each time that he drinks the wine, and he continues drinking after every warning, chayev al kol achas v'achas. Then it'll be chayev malchus for each time that he drank the wine. Similar, another halacha regarding the nazir, which is not allowed to be metame. To mesim, so he's being metame himself to a mace all day, and a chayev ala achas. He's only chayev once. However, if he gets a warning again and again, and they tell him al tatame, v'hu metame, and he's metame himself again and again, chayev al kol achas v'achas. Then he'll be chayev separately each time he's metame himself to a mace. A third halacha also regarding the nazir that's not allowed to cut his hair. If he's cutting his hair all day, he's only chayev once. But if he's told and he's warned, al tagalech, and he's continuing to cut his hair, chayev al kolachas v'achas. He'll be chayev for each one of them. So the Mishnah is saying the same halacha, repeating it regarding the three details of a nazir. The Mepharshim discussed this, why the Mishnah has to go through all these details. Regarding the case of Tumah, it's very simple to see why the Mishnah is repeating it, because by Tumah you would think, once a person was matam himself the first time, he's Tumah. Being matam himself to a mace a second time doesn't add to his Tumah. Why would he chayev malchus again? There's a chiddush to say that he would be chayev malchus again when he's matam himself a second time. Another case here, a fourth case, it's not only by a nazir. A person is wearing garments that are klayim, or shatnas, if that's what it's called, right? So he gets a warning for this, so be chayev malchus once. If he's being warned, do not wear this shatnas garment, and he wears it, so simply the pshat here is he's wearing the garment, then he took it off, and then he got another warning, and he put it on again. Then chayev al kol achas v'achas. He'll be chayev for each time that he puts on this garment. Another case where the Mishnah says where one could be chayev many times malchus, and actually for only one act that he did. Yesh chodesh telem echad. It's possible that a person is plowing just one row in a field, and v'chayev olav mishum shmeina lavin, and just this one act that he does will be 8 lavin that will be chayev for malchus. What are the 8 lavin? Ha-chodesh b'shoir v'chamer. This person is plowing an ox and a donkey together. So that's a iser, a lav of lesachrish b'shoir v'chamer yachdav, not to plow with these two together, two different kinds of animals together. And so that's right there, one lav. Then v'heim mukdoshin. Both of them, the shoir and the chamer, are from hektish. What does it mean hektish? So the Rivan explains, we're talking about the hektish of b'chor. And by b'chor, the pasuk says, lo yisaved b'b'chor shoirecha. You're not allowed to do any work with a shoir that's a b'chor. And the same, the Rashbam brings, according to one opinion, the same applies to the chamer. You're not allowed to do any work with the chamer, even though in the pasuk it says shoir, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rashi brings from the Gemara and B'chairis, the same issa applies to using the pet the chamer. The chamer, the firstborn of the chamer, there's the halacha of pet the chamer. Or Rashi says, even if it's not like the opinion, Divan rather, even if it's not like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, when the Mishnah says chamayr, it's lav dafka chamayr, it's using the term chamayr because by the Isra of Leisachrish it says shayr and chamayr, it could be a shayr and a seh, two different kinds where there's the halacha of b'chayr that it would be asr to use this b'chayr.
It's not hektish you can work with?
You don't have this Isra, yeah? But this only dafka by a b'chayr. The Rashbam here, the Rivan here brings, and the Rishayim also discuss this. L'chayr, you're using hektish, like you just mentioned. There should be a lav of me'ilah, but there is no lav of me'ilah on this. And the Rivan explains barichis benegay to kachim kalem that there's no lav of me'ilah. This is he explains the lav over there of me'ilah is only after the zrika of the dam on the mizbeach. So that's not the lav. The issue is not me'ilah. The issue is that the lav is the one that's using the shayr and the chamayr that's a b'chayr. So that's already 3 lav, because it's the leisachreish and then the using of the shayr that's a b'chayr and the chamayr that's a b'chayr. The kilayim b'kerem, and what he's plowing is kilayim in the vineyard. That's a 4th lav, and it will be shvius. This is happening on Shemitah, a 5th lav, and the Yom Tiv, and it's on a Yom Tiv, a 6th lav, and the kayin. And this person is a kayin, v'in nazir, and he's also a nazir, and he's bebeis atumah. And where is this? In a beis hakvaris, where he's not allowed to be metam himself. So he's chayiv 7th and 8th lav for being a kayin and a nazir. Now Hananya ben Chachinoi, Yaimer, af haloivish kilayim. I can add a 9th lav if this person, while he is doing this, he's wearing kilayim, he's wearing shatnez. He's chayiv a ninth malchus. Amru loi, but the Chachamim said to him, Einoi Hashem, that you're saying that he's chayiv a ninth because the garment that he's wearing, that doesn't fit into this case here, because we're talking about the act that he's doing, but the garment that he's wearing, that's something separate. That's not in one act. That's what he's trying to say. Amalehem, so Chananya ben Chachinoi said to the Chachamim, so then Af HaNazir, Loihu Hashem. If so, the fact that he's a Nazir and he's going into a Beis HaKvaris, that's also a separate thing. And therefore it shouldn't be mentioned here as well. And therefore he held that you could include over here also this detail of him wearing the shatnez garment. Okay, so the Gemara here says, Amar Rav Bevei, Amar Rav Yaisi, Paished V'loivish, when it says here in the Mishnah, that when a person is chayiv for wearing the shatnez and he's getting a warning again and again, what is he chayiv for? Does it mean that he removes? It said he removed his garment and he got another warning and he put on the garment again. So when it said paishet v'loivish, loivish mamish, does it mean that he's literally removing the garment and putting it on again? Or is it enough that he just slipped out his hand from his sleeve and he put his hand back into the sleeve? Is that enough that he would be chayiv a separate time, malchus, for wearing the shatnez? So machvir avache bereider av ikke yuli va'afuki. He's only going to be chayiv if he completely takes off the garment and puts it back on. That's when he's going to be chayiv. That's the Rivon's pshat. But I think other Rishonim say that no, he showed him a yuli va'afuki. Even if he takes his hand in and out of the sleeve, that's enough that he would be chayiv for the isur of shatnez and other malchus. Now Rav Ache bereider av ikke. Sorry, now I went up a line. Rav Ashi, that is, Rav Ashi says, Afilu lo isha el kedei livshed v'lulvesh chayiv. When the Mishnah says that he gets another warning and he'll be chayiv, he doesn't even have to remove the garment and put it back on to be chayiv another malchus. Even the fact that he's just waiting and continuing to wear that garment, the amount of time that it takes to remove the garment and put it back on, that's what the Mishnah meant when it said that he would be chayiv another malchus if he got the warning and he removed it. It doesn't mean he really removed it. It's just that he's waiting that period of time, he'd be chayiv another malchus. Okay, now the case in the Mishnah where it said, Yesh chayrish telem v'chulu, that a person is doing this charisha, he's plowing, and it'll be chayiv 8 times malchus. So the Gemara is going to focus on one detail that it said here, and that is regarding the kalayim. The isser of kalayim, there is no isser of plowing a field that's kalayim. The isser is planting kalayim. So what did the Mishnah mean when it said that one of the isurim is, one of the lavin is the fact that it's a kalay kerem? Now, Amar Rabbi Yanai, so Rabbi Yanai said, B'chabura, in a chabura, together with a group, that nimnu v'gamru, that they took account, and the conclusion was that ha'chayfe b'kalayim loike, that if there's kalayim, that one is planting, and he didn't mamish plant it, but he just is plowing, and then by plowing the field, the earth covers that kalayim that's there in the ground, he gets malchus. But why? Because just covering is already considered to be like zeireya, like he's planting. And therefore, when this is a case, zeireya, everybody agrees, yechai for kalayim. Amalehen, Rabbi Yechanan said to them, or Rabbi Yechanan said to him, Amalei Rabbi Yechanan, Lav Mishnasayni Yuzu, what you just said, that Rabbi Yanai was machadish this. Isn't this what it said in the Mishnah? Yesh chayrish telem echad, that this person is plowing one row, and v'chayiv alav mishum shmeina lavin, and it'll be chayiv 8 times, and it said a chayrish b'chshay b'chamoy v'hein v'kdoshim v'klayim b'kerem. The 4th malchus mentioned in the Mishnah was that he was plowing with kalayim. Now, hay chayrish d'mechayiv mishum kalayim heichem mishkachasla. The fact that he's plowing and there's kalayim here in this field, why would he be chayiv for this? There is no issa to plow kalayim. The issa is the planting, the zriya of the kalayim. L'sizra karmucha kalayim. So why is he chayiv in this case for the lav of kalayim? So isn't the reason lav de mechasi badi dazel? As he's plowing, he's covering the seeds of kalayim. So that's the pshat in the Mishnah. So we clearly see that just covering the seeds as you're plowing, it's considered to be zayreya, and therefore you're chayiv. So therefore, Rabbi Yechanan is telling Rabbi Yanai, what's your chiddush? It says it clearly in the Mishnah. Amalei, so Rabbi Yechanan responded to Rabbi Yanai responded to Rabbi Yechanan and said to him, Ilav de daloy lo chaspa. If not for the fact that I picked up this broken piece of earthenware, mi mishkachas maginta tusa, would you find that expensive and the precious gem beneath it? So yeah, you're right, this is the pshat in the Mishnah, but I told you this halacha about covering the seeds that's considered to be like planting kalayim, and now you see that this is the pshat in our Mishnah as well. Now, Amalei Reish Lakish le Rabbi Yechanan, so Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yechanan about this, that really no, there's a different way how to learn our Mishnah. Ilav the kalsach gavra rabbe. If not for the fact that a great person like Rabbi Yanai praised you and said that this is the pshat of the Mishnah, hava amina, I would say that masnisan mani, when it says in our Mishnah that when one is plowing the kalayim and he's chayiv for the kalayim, who's our Mishnah going according to? Rabbi Kiva. This is following the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. And it's the reason why he's chayiv the malchus for the kalayim is not because of planting. And not everybody agrees to it. It's only Rabbi Kiva. Why? Because the Omar, Rabbi Kiva says, HaMekayim Kalayim Loike, that even someone that didn't plant Kalayim, he's just maintaining the Kalayim there in the field, for that itself you get Malchus. And therefore when it said in our Mishnah, Chayrish, in the Kerem, and the same thing also, the Halacha of Mechape, when one covers Kalayim, it's not called planting. And therefore, not everybody would agree that you're chayiv for this. It's only Rabbi Kiva that said that there's an additional isser of mekayim kalayim, of maintaining kalayim. He holds that if you cover kalayim, you're maintaining the kalayim, you're leaving it there, and you'll be chayiv. And that's the Tan of our Mishnah, that you're chayiv. But it's not called planting. So not like Rabbi Yanai said. Now, my Rabbi Kiva, where is the source of Rabbi Kiva? The Tanya, because we learned in the Braisa, it says, Hamenachesh, someone that's weeding over Hamachape, Kalayim, he covers the kalayim in the vineyard. Loike, he gets malchus for this. Okay, so now the Rashbam says this entire brayse is all really Rabbi Kiva. It says now Rabbi Kiva says, now this is Rabbi Kiva explaining what he just said regarding machape, the kalayim, that he gets malchus. That afam mekayim, why are you chayiv if you cover the seeds of kalayim? Not because it's considered to be planting. It's not. Planting is when you mamish are planting. Covering, the reason one is chayiv is because he's mekayim, because he's maintaining the kalayim there. That's why one is chayiv. And therefore, Reish Lakish says you could learn that that's the pshat in our Mishnah, that it's not l'kul alma. It's only according to Rabbi Kiva that says that you're chayiv for being mekayim kalayim. Okay, but what Reish Lakish is saying, that this is how I would learn pshat in the Mishnah if not for the fact that Rabbi Yanai praised you and told you this. But now that Rabbi Yanai praised you and said that the pshat in our Mishnah is that mechapa kalayim is considered to be zayreya, that it's like planting, so then it's l'kul alma, because it is considered to be planting. Now the Gemara brings the source of Rabbi Kiva's opinion. My time at Rabbi Kiva. Why does Rabbi Kiva say that not only planting kalayim, like it says in the pasuk, like sizra, why even maintaining the kalayim is also chayiv? So the Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, it says in the pasuk, Sot chole sizra kalayim, se'en li el zayreya. So from this I see that one that plants kalayim is chayiv. Mekayim minayin. So how do I know? Even if he's just mekayim, the kalayim will be chayiv. Talmud Laima, the pasuk says, "Behem tochol loisar bia kalayim," and then it says, "Sod chol sizra kalayim." So the way you read the pasuk according to Rabbi Kiva is, even though the word kalayim really belongs together with behem tochol loisar bia kalayim, but he reads it kalayim sodcha loy. Kalayim, which is in your field, do not leave there. Right? Because it says the word kalayim a second time, so therefore he reads it in this way, that kalayim sot chaloi. And therefore that means not only the planting of kalayim, as it says, sot chaloi sizra, but also kalayim sot chaloi, if the kalayim is already there and you maintain it, one is chayiv for that as well. And that could be the pshat of the Mishnah. Okay, but the Gemara's conclusion though is that the pshat of the Mishnah is that covering the kalayim is like planting the kalayim. Based on this, the Gemara has another shaila. Okay, this is already, it goes all the way down to, we'll learn it next time.